really shocked him. So we'll talk about that in the next hour. David Rose from UMSL, economist and sort of our go-to guy on some of these issues relating to the economy. The president, David, says that the stimulus plan saved or created, the keyword there, I think, created 2 million jobs. What do you think about that number?
Well, people have commented, particularly economists have commented at great length about this counterfactual saved jobs number. Anyone can save as many jobs as they like by simply speculating that many more jobs were going to be lost than otherwise would.
Right, I can do that. I could say that I saved a lot of jobs by doing this show.
But yeah,
I might start doing that, by the way.
With all seriousness regarding the job saved, though, one of the planks of his discussion was the fact that he was investing in the future, and part of the investment in the future was to bail out state governments and local governments. So what has happened is the number of jobs lost in the private sector has been quite a bit higher than the number of jobs lost in the public sector, and that's not a good thing. I mean, it's basically increasing the ratio of government-employed people.
All right, now let me stop you right there, because here's what I hear from people every once in a while. I agree with you, by the way, but I want to touch on this a little bit more specifically, because when people make statements like that, here's the response I get from liberals. They say, well, what do you want? You want to, if you fire government workers, those people are just going to be unemployed, and that's going to just add to the unemployment numbers. So how is that going to make anything better?
Well, if you adopt a completely static view of the world, there's only one period, no time changes, and there's no dynamics going on, then yeah, that's right. You'd have fewer people working. But as we discussed earlier, the fact of the matter is that part of the beginning of the end of a recession is for the unemployment rate to, in fact, go up, for things like certain kinds of firms to cease to exist and things like certain kinds of government functions to cease to exist. This is very painful in the short run. I would never make light of that. When people lose their jobs, it's extremely difficult. But the firms that are doing the best jobs are not the ones that go bankrupt, and they're not the ones that lay off a whole bunch of people. The firms that are doing the worst job tend to be the ones that were closest to the margin to begin with. So this ends up freeing up labor, and it goes to a better place than it would have otherwise had we not had the recession. So recessions have this kind of silver lining associated with them that would not be there if we didn't have the recession. We wouldn't have a lot of resources that were stuck in firms that were underperforming. In government, we're not getting that. In government, we're largely just having people do their jobs. If they do their jobs poorly, that becomes an argument for needing more money for the government to have more people do the jobs, because it's never an issue of the government.
Well, and it's a vicious cycle. All right, one final question. Go back to on the double dip question, whether or not that could happen. I think everybody wants the economy to improve. Even if you have a job, you want to feel better about where the country is heading. In February of 2010, there are some positive numbers out there when it comes to GDP growth and unemployment. So what are your thoughts on whether that will continue or not?
I think we have allowed the whole issue to be framed in a very unproductive way. Whether we have a recession or an expansion, or whether the recession's over or whatever, those things are not nearly as important as the potential harm done to the economy's growth in the long run by policies that are put in play in the short run because of a panic. That's what I think is the real issue. I mean, who knows? Maybe the recession's over and things are going to take off and everything will be fine. It's very difficult to predict these things. But what we do know is if you have policy changes that cause long-term problems, that is really penny-wise, pound foolish, because the name of the game is to make that line I told you about earlier, that flat line that has a slight upward tilt, to make that thing as steep as possible. That's the name of the game, because the economy is always going to go up and down and up and down and up and down. So one thing, let me give you an example of what I mean by that. One of the big parts of the stimulus bill was to give money to states, and in fact, Missouri got some money.
That's right.
Lots of states got
Senator McCaskill has been touting that, saying that, if we didn't have that, we'd be having to make steeper budget cuts, and that all the road projects that you're going to see over the course of 2010, they're all paid for by the Stimulus Act, so we should be thankful for that.
That's right. But at the same time, states like Illinois and California have been essentially completely irresponsible, just completely irresponsible for a long, long time. Now, I think it's one thing that's great about our country and great about our economy is that there is a kind of competition for citizens across states. And when we give a ton of money to states to bail them out, like we will be passively through the stimulus package to California and Illinois, when we do that, what we're basically doing is we're socializing across the whole country costs that produce private benefits for citizens in just this or that state. And what that does then is that means in the long run, then the dominant strategy for every state is to be irresponsible, and then when things don't work out, everybody else.
Yeah, that's the pattern. That's the dangerous pattern.
That's an extremely dangerous pattern, and that's the kind of thing that can undercut our ability to grow as a nation in the long run.
Yeah, I think it has, absolutely. Economist David Rose, professor at UMSL, University of Missouri, St. Louis. Great having you back on, David.
Great being here.
All right, we'll have you back again soon. It's 4, I'm sorry.